Welcome to Beverley House Stables, which since 1997 has been the base of trainer John Berry. It's one of the smaller yards in Newmarket, but they're enjoying a really good 2015 with 7 winners so far, which when you consider there's only around 16 horses in training, that is pretty good going. John has also recently become Mayor of Newmarket, so I'm expecting that he'll have plenty to say. John, thanks for having us along. It's lovely to see the place, and I suppose we should start with congratulations, because I think you're at 7 winners now and having a great season.
Yes, it's good. It's good. The first 4 runners of the season all won. So we started off with 100% strike rate, but I think it's still about 25% now. I think we've probably had high getting on for 30 runners. So yeah, it's been nice. It's been nice to sort of you almost measure it by fewness of disappointments rather than quantity of winners. So when the strike rate's high, it means you're not coming home disappointed too often, and that's good.
Because you've only got around sort of 16, 18 horses in training, so just getting them to the track must be quite tricky.
Yeah, we got 16 on the go now, but probably half of them would be just in slow work. At any point, even though this is theoretically the sort of height of the season, racing sort of, a handful of those are jumpers, and there's always a few backward ones that aren't ready. So yeah, I mean, you'd if you've got 50% of what you've got in strong work at any time, you're probably doing quite well. So yeah, there's only a handful that are sort of close to racing at the moment.
And Roy Rocket, I suppose, has led the charge. 3 wins, I think it is, from him. He's been a real star this year.
He's been grand. Yeah, he'd done nothing. He's 5 now. He'd just sort of picked up a couple of moderate places in his early years of racing, and the turf started this season. We took him to Brighton, and he's never looked back. I think he's run 7 times he's been the first 3 every time. He's had, I think, 3 wins, 2 seconds and 2 thirds or something. And when I bred him myself, and I ride him every day, so it's been a real pleasure. But it's sort of tinged with the sort of the elephant in the room is, why did it take me so long to get him to find any form? But no, it's been lovely. Thank you.
And what's the plan for him? Back to Brighton? Is there anything suitable?
Back to Brighton, yeah. We sort of took him to Brighton. Most times you take a horse to Brighton thinking, well, you never know what to expect, and normally majority of horses don't handle it. We went there in the spring and only won by a wide margin. So yeah, we keep going back, and the only other tracks he's run have been Lingfield on the grass and Epsom, because they're sort of the same thing. I mean, of course, the drawback with Epsom is it's the same thing but better opposition, but he still finished 3rd there.
Does that put a bit more pressure on when you own part of them, or you've bred them? Is it a little bit more nerve-wracking when they finally get to the races?
No, it's less. It's much less. If there's a horse that I'm running and I own, and they run disappointingly, I just go home and I think, well, thank God I own that, and I'm the only one that has to suffer the disappointment. I think the real killer of training is the disappointment, and whether you're trainers and jockeys and owners, disappointment is more frequent than the triumphs. And when you train a winner, you're so delighted to be training it for someone else, and there's someone else you're helping someone to get joy. And when you have a disappointing day, you feel less bad about it if you're shouldering the bulk of the disappointment yourself.
Because you are quite a small yard, certainly in Newmarket standards. Is this how it's always been? Is this how you always want it to be? You want a sort of family-friendly kind of atmosphere?
Yes, I had a dream when I started that I had a vision that you could have a small stable of good horses. But of course, in practice, that doesn't happen, because the vast majority of good horses are ones who start out quite expensive. The sort of the 1,500 guinea yearling that becomes a Group 1 winner they happen, but they happen very infrequently. So people who spend a lot of money on horses, in general, they want them to go to a stable where there are significant numbers of other horses, and the people who only train small strings tend to end up with the horses whose credentials are less obvious. So, but yeah, no, it's a definite intention as always to be just train a small string of horses. I love the hands-on involvement of them, and the bigger you get, the farther you have to step back from the day-to-day riding and all the other things that go with it, simply because the administrations come so much that you have to delegate the hands-on job, and as I say, that's what I enjoy doing.
Is it hard though trying to make it pay with just a few horses? Obviously prize money isn't what everyone would like it to be. It can't be the easiest way to make a living.
No, I mean I don't make any money on the training. If in a year if I break even, I'd be pleased. Fortunately, I do a few other things, which brings in a small amount. And I mean, my biggest asset is I own the property. So if I were paying rent as well, it would be difficult. But yeah, I mean that's the thing for small trainers. My saying that the horses here I own. I think any trainer, if they own 100%, if all the horses are 100% owned by other people, you couldn't go wrong, because if you could train a small number of horses, your overheads are so much smaller. And training 200 horses isn't a license to print money, and training 4 horses isn't a license to lose money. But the key thing would be is if they're all owned by other people. But in practice, and particularly with small trainers, you always end up owning a bit of this and a bit of that, and you own that one, and particularly they're a lot easier to accumulate than to disperse. Particularly if you sort of half view them as pets anyway. So, but fortunately I've it's running to stand still really, but I'm still running and I'm still standing still and still here. So yeah, it's sort of just about works out.
It must be a great way of life because you've got the horses right here in the centre of Newmarket, which is just the best place to train, isn't it? I'd have thought.
Yeah, the wonderful thing about Newmarket is if you're training a big string of $1 million yearlings, or you're training a handful of selling platers, you're on the same footing. You go out, you use the same exercise grounds, you've got access to the same vets, the same farriers, you've got the best of everything. If you were to set up training in the country, to have a really good training setup, you'd have to be working on a big budget. And you'd have to be training a lot of nice horses to generate the income to buy or lease the land, to have your extensive facilities, to put down your all-weather gallops, and to have the man hours to maintain them. Here you don't have any of those worries at that. It's standard heath tack charge per horse, and for that you get the run of the place and it's all maintained. And because of that, it is the best place to train. Full stop.
And as you say, you've got access to absolutely everything, miles and miles of gallops. It's amazing to me, it all just seems to work. Horses and humans seem to coexist really well here. Is that just an outsider's viewpoint, or is it really that good?
It really is that good, yes. And it's that good because it's always been that way. The precedent was established long before the motor car was invented. And the precedent has still existed for the horses being able to move around the town. They've, for 3.5 centuries now, there's been the horses trained in the middle of the town, made their way out to the heath every morning to train. And we're very lucky it's still feasible, and I believe it always will still be feasible. But if you were to sort of make a new town now and say we're going to put in the racehorse training element, it would be almost impossible to have it accepted that it could happen.
And just talking about Newmarket, there's this big push at the moment behind sort of getting people in to go on tours of the yard and really getting across the sort of heritage of Newmarket. How's that working out? Because it's only been sort of launched a few months, but I've seen a lot of positive things.
Yes, I can't say there's always, but for quite a long time now, there've been a few people running tours of Newmarket. So it's always been happening, but now it's sort of been centralised, and it's probably got a bigger marketing budget. So probably more people are aware that it's happening, and which I love seeing people out on the heath in the mornings, particularly in the summer sort of racing weekends when there's big meetings on. It's lovely to see several sort of people out and standing, watching the horses go by, and I only think the pity is even now that more people don't do it. I'd like to get the message across that anyone who comes to the races at Newmarket, the heath is there and anyone can just go and drive up the Moulton Road and pull over on the side, and you will find that the trainers and the lads will make you welcome if you're leaning on the rail watching the world go by and want to pass the time of day with anyone. You will be made welcome. It's a welcoming place. I think one's enjoyment of coming to Newmarket and the racing here would be hugely increased by taking the time to get out on the heath in the morning and see the training. And I mean, certainly anyone that rings me up and says, "Oh, I'm in Newmarket, complete stranger, I'd love to have a look at a stable," they're always welcome to call in. And I'd have thought the vast majority of trainers would take the same view.
Do you think that's what makes it so unique, that everyone is so helpful and just seems to be working towards promoting racing?
Yeah, I think that's a general thing within racing, not just a Newmarket thing. I'm sure if you went to Midland or Lambourne or Epsom or Malton or anywhere around the country, it's I think one of the things that makes racing great is the characters in, and I love going to the races, and wherever you go, you see from the highest in society to the lowest, and it's the thing, all men are equal on or under the turf, and all men are equal on the turf, and you find racing people tend to be friendly and welcoming, which is, as I say, I think one of the great charms of the sport.